Hey everyone, welcome to Relevant Rants. I'm here today with my good friend Blake Bernard. Tom's on vacation somewhere, goofing off or who knows what. We called in Blake, and actually, I will say Tom did his due diligence and made sure that he had it covered. So you got to give him a little bit of credit. And on top of it, he put the whole show together for us. So Tom, thank you very much. Appreciate you, even though I love giving you a hard time.
You got to get your shifts covered, man.
Yeah,
that's a fireable offense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what I trained my whole crew. I was like, I don't care if you're here, you're responsible for someone being here.
100%. It's so funny. I had an employee miss work, and they didn't understand why they had to get their coverage. And I'm like, dude, when I was teaching, if I didn't get a substitute teacher for whatever, is that not something that is common sense anymore?
Right. Well, I've never had that luxury in my position in business. I'm like, yeah. So can I get someone to come in and cover as the owner?
I wish, man. It's hard not to take your work with you when you're sick on vacation, regardless. Baby's being born.
you ever been in that place in your business where you're like, I kind of hope that I get sick, so I have an excuse to take a day off?
Never,
dude.
I love what I do, man.
Well, I do now, but there's been times in my life where I have not.
Man, when I get to that point, I just know that I'm probably miserable to be around. I'm like, I need to go take a 3-day weekend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, anyways, hey, this show is brought to you guys by Covenant Coffee. And guys, they stand for Hope in a Cup, providing opportunities to foster youth, giving them employment opportunities and life experiences that they can take with them out into the real world and start their adult lives coming out of the system. So guys, understand that Covenant Coffee, there's no better cause in the coffee industry in Bakersfield. And I think they also do wholesale shipping to businesses.
They sell beans. They have K-cups.
Absolutely.
They have bagged beans. Mm-hmm. They got a coffee shop where you can go and they're doing well. They're growing.
This is very relevant. I can now say this. My sister has just successfully sold, I believe they closed escrow this week, in Covenant Coffee acquiring Cloud9 Coffee Company.
And so that's current news. Yeah, congrats, Randy Martin.
And congrats, your sister. Morgan. Yeah. But it's good. We know that it's going to be left in good hands. He assured her that nothing would be changed. He loves the brand, loves what she's built, and it's a great acquisition on both sides.
Well, I think Tom was saying we're going to make a point to start kind of doing some meetings over there.
Be really cool. Well, I hold all my meetings there, but now I get to support another awesome Christian. So anyways, we have some topics to talk about today. How do you guys normally do this? Do you prompt Gabe, or what happens?
Yeah, so what looks like Gabe's kind of prompting us on the first one. Gabe, is this the lightning round, or is this the longer round where we're starting?
This is gonna be the video that starts to get out.
Okay, let's go for it.
72 points for Cyrus.
Timer.
72 points for Cyrus.
Oh,
that's sheeples. Oh my gosh. You guys are moving to a place with a sense of humor, clearly.
right.
Louise.
Well, we're actually, my wife just sent me a listing for a property in Franklin, because that's where we want to be, is in Franklin. Now we're looking all over the place, but we want to be somewhere relatively close to Tom, because if we're working together on a daily basis, we can't be 2 hours away.
So who's going to have the studio?
Well, initially it'll be Tom at his place, right? Man. Because we're gonna be renting off the bat, so
that'll be cool, man. Get a 4-walled room, and each one is its own set. That'll be really cool, man.
Yeah.
So roll the next one for us, Mr. Gabe.
Okay. Hold on. Go back. Drop it off the screen, because this is the part where we're supposed to have the timer.
Wait,
I do know this.
Timer.
There's a timer.
I'm new here, sorry, guys.
And that's all right. That's right. You're running the timer, and each of us get a minute to talk about this after that. And that's the part that I didn't. So the first one was supposed to be that, but it didn't go there. So that's all right. We'll do that for the second one. And I didn't see what it is yet, so I didn't cheat, Tom. Because what did Tom tell you? You got to run the timer, because Mike cheats.
I thought he was talking about the big red timer. Okay. I was like, dude,
the big red
I'll
timer.
keep an eyeball on it. Okay, cool. So you want to do it or me? Which one are we going to?
We're going to the next thing, but I got a minute. You got a minute.
1 minute.
We each get a minute to say our thoughts about the content here. So
cool.
Gabe, let's bring up our next one. California ranks last in opportunity due to cost of living. Okay. Yeah.
All right. 3, 2, 1. You're on.
All right. So I don't know who it is saying this, but it looks like center square according to the new Slate rankings. Yeah. But I mean, reality is the cost of living in California is so outrageous that frankly, if I didn't already own a business before we had kids, I don't know if I'd take the risk in California to start one. And I was looking at the cost of living, and even in Bakersfield, like stuff has gotten outrageous, man. The housing has gone up exponentially, although in the state of California and really as far as other metros across the U.S., California is still, or Bakersfield is still affordable. We have noticed prices that have decreased a little bit recently, including groceries and gas and other things. So I don't know who we have to thank for that, but definitely guarantee you it's not Biden or Gavin Newsom, although they want to take credit for it. I always had this theory that the prices were going to drop before election.
You'd hope.
It's interesting to see that's coming true.
Absolutely. And time. I think that the thing about opportunity is, like, I look at it from an entrepreneurial standpoint that deals with employees every day. And then I also see it from like the father standpoint, right?
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I don't think it makes a lot of sense to own a business in California anymore. Hence why you see, the Elon Musks and the tech companies moving out. Because, well, number one, it's too expensive to employ people, but then also like just all the California laws and regulations that follow, and you end up overpaying people when you have to terminate them, when, all the different benefits and things that are required of certain positions. It's insane. So do you expect that humans being so expensive are going to be, I'm just like, I can't think of a better reason to inject robots into McDonald's and Walmart and all these other things. Of course, it makes more sense to have them at the cashier. And then number two, you're absolutely right. It's all relative, but even here in Bakersfield, we're blessed to be in the only place that might be semi-affordable.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like, gosh, if you're having to pay $15 for a chub of ground beef,
right,
you're in dire
that's
straits,
outrageous.
man. I know. So time.
So going back to that, I was thinking as you're talking about employees and stuff, right? I remember not that long ago, i.e., like current news, right? So with the wage hikes in fast food, they're like, oh, this only applies to certain fast food restaurants that have so much. Do you think someone can make $20 an hour going over there, right, to the fast food place? Are they going to come, which used to be like a great wage that you and I would pay to somebody, $20 an hour? They're like, well, I can go work at McDonald's for $20 an hour. What are you going to do for me?
Yep.
So they said, oh, we're only doing that. They're shoving this down everybody's throat. They're just coming in under the radar.
Yeah, especially when I just learned yesterday that Taco Bell calls their employees
Slaves?
No, burrito champions.
Oh,
and Subway employees are sandwich artisans.
It's
a trade.
Taco Bell could call them baristas.
That was awful.
I'm sorry, dad joke.
That makes me hate that we're live. All right, next.
All right, you're going first on this one.
All right, I gotta get to a place.
World's toughest bear, nicknamed the Boss, survived getting hit by a train and fathers 70% of cubs in the area. Oh, the Boss bear, also known as Bear 122, is the most famous grizzly bear in Banff National Park. If you spend any time in the park, you've already heard about him. He's one of the biggest, baddest, largest grizzly bears in the park, known for being struck by a train twice, fighting with his rival bear split lip, and even snacking on smaller black bears. The Boss has become one of the most famous bears in Canada. Unfortunately, last year, the Boss has become even more notorious for hanging around the town of Banff itself. It's not unusual for the Boss to be spotted around the town site, but this time he was seen snacking on crab apples in a resident's backyard. He also made the news once more for bluff charging residents.
That's the most alpha mammal on the planet. That was also the most masculine article I think I've ever read in my life. I'd love to see what split lip looks like too. Goodness sakes. Would you pay to see that fight?
Well, I don't know. Are you gonna watch the Tyson fight?
Yeah, we should call Michael Vick to go promote this one too. Man, that's amazing. Okay, so he also fathered all the Cubs, no surprise, in the area. My goodness, dude. So that guy's like the biggest, baddest male in his area.
Yeah.
Now, who would win between like him and a gorilla, though? I think gorillas are like the most alpha things on the planet.
I don't know, dude. That's a great question. I think I've Googled this before. Like, I kind of feel like the answer was gorilla.
Yeah, that's what I think. They just got that stupid strength and agility. I don't know. They're the alpha athletes.
Right.
But this is what makes
that's why
me
the
miss.
Grindhouse logo, right?
I know that is. But it makes me miss those Spike TV shows where they would like pit two animals against each other, or like the
Right.
Deadliest Warrior. What happened to those shows? What happened to men? Anyways, all right, that's time. What's your reaction?
Okay, so when I'm reading this and sitting in California and especially the United States, when I hear something about a bear and also a train, makes me think of Kamala Harris. But all joking aside, I think Tom likes to throw animal stuff into these things all the time, and you haven't been around the show long enough to know that, but yeah, I like the bear. He is pretty BA.
Yeah,
right?
I like the whole animal kingdom thing because they don't talk. They just like everything's action based. You know what I mean? And so like the predators, dude, I'm a huge like big cat guy. My daughter and I geek out over all the lion documentaries and cheetah stuff. Dude, freaking love them. So that stuff's right up our alley. But man, you never see an article like that in California.
Yeah, right.
Somebody off. That's dude, it's misogynistic and sexist.
He's seen that train. He's just like, bring it on. What you got on me?
Roll it.
Like Kamala said too.
Oh God, she's a dancing bear.
Oh, I can't read this one. Breaking Democrat. My eyes are shot.
Okay, Democrat.
I'm blind.
Mega donor Jacob Hellberg has just announced that he will not be donating any more money to President Biden. Instead, he has decided to donate $1 million to President Donald Trump's presidential campaign. Roll it.
All right, so here's the thing, and I don't know if you realize this, but I learned this a long time ago. I've had clients that are incredibly wealthy, especially down in the LA area, that have been mega donors to campaigns, politicians, and all this all over the place. The big thing that these guys do is they donate to both sides, right? They might donate more to one side than the other, but really what they're trying to do is buy power and influence by donating,
Yes.
right? So it doesn't surprise me that he would donate to Trump, because I guarantee you there's a lot more Democratic donors that are donating to Trump also, and to Republicans and to conservatives and all this stuff, because they donate across the board. They're not just doing it. I'm not talking about their voting. Their voting may go, very likely he'll vote Democrat, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he's given money where he can get influence, and he's like, well, I see the train leaving the station, another Kamala Harris reference, and I know which direction this country is heading, and I'm going to put my money on the winning horse.
Absolutely. Did it say that he's pulling all of his funds from the Democratic Party, or just Joe Biden?
I think it just said just Joe Biden, but
Yeah, I mean, so he could.
Joe Biden's unlikely to win this thing.
Absolutely. Well, so we say, but
In Jesus' name.
in Jesus' name, yeah, it requires faith to have, to make common sense judgments like that these days. The thing about that is, like, I agree with you. They're always giving it to both sides, but obviously, whoever has the deepest pockets are going to have the most influence. Like, It's the George Soros thing. He contributes $100 million. I don't know if it's a year or whatever. Like, by far and away, triple the next highest donor to the Democratic Party, right?
And how much does he give to Antifa?
Exactly. And he's allowed to.
That's not an organization.
And he's allowed to, because obviously the policymakers are being fed by this guy, right? So obviously it's a good play. It's just a joint venture at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It helps promote the warring sides, I guess. So anyways, I mean, it's good to hear. We're Trumpers around here. We think that he's the best option in the race. But
I was talking to someone else. Oh, I'm not going to take your time. Sorry.
No, I don't. I realized I said that, and I want to make sure I don't want to misrepresent.
No,
Okay.
go ahead. I want to comment on that in a second.
No, it's like, obviously we want to see the guys that we support. We're clearly biased, getting the support of people with more money than we do. Hopefully it helps.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
So what I was going to say is yes. I would say probably everybody that comes in this building, for the most part, like 90% of them at least, would be voting for Trump. The thing is, I was talking to someone else. Tom and I were talking to somebody the other night. And we're like, the thing is, we don't necessarily like the man. We like the results, right?
Correct.
Trump's an asshole. But we were talking about Donald Trump Jr. because Tom and I have both seen him speak in person, and Jr. should run for office.
Very impressive.
And I don't know if he will or not, but he's eloquent. He's not an asshole like his dad. He has a filter, but he's so incredibly articulate and intelligent that I think he would do really well if he did decide to run.
100%. Yeah, you're just looking at, just like you said, the outcome of President Trump's election and where he left our economy pre-COVID, I guess, right?
Yeah, because everybody's gonna. Oh, look, it was terrible. Yeah, it was freaking terrible because the pandemic, but
which is manufactured by the Dems. So,
right.
Anyways, yeah, you look at the outcome. How can you not root for him? But again, it doesn't mean that we're not. I just think it goes a lot deeper than like Orange Man bad. You know what I mean? So,
Right. Well, I think generally corrupt government bad, and that's both sides.
Correct.
So, next one, Gabe.
MLK's daughter, Bernice King, said black men are more attracted to Donald Trump and his candidacy. I just can't read what's underneath it, but let's speak on this. Black men are more attracted to Donald Trump. Okay. So I have lots of black friends.
So do I. We both do. Yeah.
Not
we
say
have a lot of black friends in common.
Okay. At one point in time, I held a black card. Okay. Although I'm not going to use it on air. All right. I'm just playing. But here's the deal. The black community, the black community is not what you see on TV. Okay. And so maybe we should get some black guests on our show to talk about this particular issue. Because again, I don't want to misappropriate, but man, just sitting across the dinner table, you would very quickly see that they're not all championing, systemic racism and propagating all the issues you see the Dems, throwing in our face every single day. They see right through that stuff and go, man, if you were to shut off the news tomorrow, there wouldn't be such a big issue about it, but they're circulating and perpetuating and multiplying these minor issues. Not saying that racism doesn't exist in our country and never did. It is a massive thing, something that I've personally never had to deal with, but I've watched my buddies go through it, right? And they would be the first to tell you what they're saying on the news and the things that they're elevating as to maybe the forefront of our nation's sight is not what you see on a daily basis, nor should it be what we're sending all of our funds to, when there are much better ways to assist the black community if you really do want to make a change, right? Yeah. So ultimately, they see right through that stuff and go like, man, these guys are really just like trying to patronize and use us to promote their causes. I don't think anybody likes being used at the end of the day.
No. Nope. So, is it my turn?
Yes.
All right. So, I think you can look at like one of the closest groups and people to us, Pierre Wilson, the executive director, I believe it is, director of Blexit. And that this falls right in line with their mission and what they're about, right? I mean, they're about helping the underserved communities and all of those things. However, I think that a lot of people are starting to open their eyes and wake up, and it's more of a matter of education and understanding than it is like because all of these I can't say all, but a lot of black people have grown up in sadly, less fortunate circumstances and situations, largely fault of the government, frankly. But all they know is, hey, this is where I get my paycheck, or this is my livelihood and all of these things. Meanwhile, completely missing the entire fact that they're kept in bondage to that, right? And as they're being informed and waking up, they're realizing that, and they're leaving the Democratic Party in droves.
Absolutely. And let me clean up my answer just a little bit too, because this can be a touchy subject and I am live, right? So at the end of the day, no one's no one, especially me, certainly no one associated with 511 Media would ever say that racism doesn't exist. Okay. Like I want to like squash that one, right? So no one misunderstands. Where it becomes a problem is when parties use the principle of racism to blow it out of proportion for their own gain. That's called manipulation, right? They're not doing it to help the afflicted people group. They're rather using it to fill their deep pockets, and that's where it becomes an issue. Something that I, as even a white man, get pissed off about. And people like, I mean, my friends get really bent out of shape about because, dude, they don't want to be, what's the word, patronized as, or even dependent on a government. Dude, they're smart, they're intelligent, they're hardworking, they're all of these things that the news would lead you to believe that, like, dude, they're not. You know what I mean? And so ultimately, we don't want to endorse anything that's manipulative and divisive, because at the end of the day, it just like it widens the gap rather than bringing people together.
Well, I think there's a lot of people in power. I wouldn't say all of them. I can't even say the majority. Maybe it is the majority. I don't know. But what I can say is a lot. There's a lot of people in power, positions of power, media, government, other influential places that are intentionally creating division as a distraction.
100%.
So
it's a distraction, and also you can weaponize causes.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I
So it's
mean?
not just racism. It's along financial lines. It's along political party lines. It's all along all sorts of lines. So
money's at the root of all of it, you know. Next. Biden's presidency has been so bad that even Kamala's approval rating is high. That's bad. That's bad.
Go back to the train issue.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the thing is, Kamala has been largely out of the news anyway. So I think, and I think I was talking to, it might have been Tom that we were talking the other day, and it's actually worked in Trump's favor to be out of the news. Because he doesn't
Just
have
let
an
them
opportunity.
fumble.
Yeah, he doesn't have an opportunity to put his foot in his mouth. So Kamala's been more or less out of the news. I mean, she really, what does a vice president even do? Like, their job is to be there just in case the president dies, which shockingly, Biden, like, he's like 5 seconds from death at all times. But you know, of course she's going to have a higher approval rating because we got a president who's doing terrible. He hasn't done anything, which is crazy, because I go on some of these online sites and forums and read stuff all the time, and there are people that are delusional enough to think that Biden's doing a fantastic job. But frankly, he's doing a terrible job. And
I don't know that people really do. I think it's bots.
It could be. Maybe it is. Maybe it is.
Really do.
All right, it's your turn.
All right, so here's the deal. Hey, I don't know how Kamala Harris has even a 30% approval rating, to be honest with you. That number alone was like the first thing that flew off the page at me. But yeah, I agree, man. Like, I think of it like, I want to speak more on to what you said. Trump is succeeding because he's like kind of he's abstaining from being, you know, the center of attention.
He has
all
a
the
gag
time.
order. He's not abstaining.
He does not. He doesn't have to say anything because they can't go.
He can't say anything.
They can't go a week without making an awful decision, and
Right.
everybody knows it now. You know. So I think that maybe I wonder what he would say about like his last campaign if he had all regrets. You know. Being in front of the
He's
mic.
too much of a
not at all.
narcissist.
Not at all.
He's too much of a narcissist.
Because their approval rating was already on the way down. You know what I mean? So it's like I just wonder if he would, like, hindsight's 2020. I wonder if, you know, public perception of his persona, you know, would have at all been different and maybe altered the results of the last election, if any. You know,
maybe, but you know, I think it's interesting because I do think Trump's a narcissist. He's too much of a narcissist. However, everyone likes to point out the fact that Trump's a narcissist. Well, okay, we all know that, right? It's not a secret. It's not news. But what they're missing is all of them are.
So are we.
Well, yeah, sure, to some level or degree, right?
Level of
I mean, especially you. But but if you look at really any member of Senate, Congress, like to think that I'm the, especially presidency, I'm the one who should be running the country because I'm the best person for the job. For you to think that, just like, how could you think that and not be a narcissist?
Again, any leader of any organization has to. Otherwise, how do you have influence over people if you don't believe in what you're saying?
Right.
So I'm just,
Yeah.
All right. Are we going to get to the videos that we had last night or what? Yeah, we're not getting to them at all. Unless you want to let this thing go an hour.
You know what? Tom's not here. I think
We're flexible. All right. He said Mike cheats.
Taking advantage.
Mike cheats.
Mike cheats. He does.
This dude in, he's old, he's senile, he's fumbling over everything that he says. What better person to do the damage to the United States than someone like that? Because if it were Gavin Newsom or if it was someone who was put together mentally, we would be standing at the White House with torches saying, bro, treason, right? But because it's an old man, they've played it off as a confused, well-meaning elderly man. That is not true. You're Barack Obama's butt boy. That's what the fuck you are. You were chosen not because you deserve to be president, but because you would be easy to excuse doing the damage that they wanted to do in this country. That's the reality of Joe Biden.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know much about Andy Frisella, but every time I hear him open his mouth, I'm like, yeah. He's awesome. It feels like he's my kind of people. What do you think about that?
Well, Andy Frisella is the creator of the 75 Hard.
Yeah. That's about all I know about him, to be honest with you.
Okay, so he's got some big supplement brands, and I guarantee you, Tom and Steve know way more about this guy. But from everything I've seen him say, similar to you, I agree with it. I like it. but I think, like, is there sadly, I'm going to ask a rhetorical question, but it's sad that the answer is yes. Pathetically, it's yes. Is there anybody in the country, or how can there be anybody in the country who doesn't realize that that's all Biden is a stool pigeon? There's other people pulling his strings, and he's just a puppet. What's crazy is there's a fair amount of people that don't realize that or believe it.
Yeah, I don't know how widespread that is. And it's so hard because you can't trust polls. You can't trust what the majority or the minority are. Like, there's no way to report that. So it's hard to really know. And when they're falsifying polls to begin with and elections and things like that, like it's hard to know. I just know, I can only speak for my circle. I don't know anyone that believes that guy's in control of anything,
even his own constitution.
Like his bowel movements?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
You said people can't believe that he's in control of anything.
That was a good one. It went right over my head.
Apparently.
His Depends diapers as well. Yeah, the interesting thing about this is, like, I don't even know if, like, are they using his age to make excuses for him now? Because I don't know that his, like, mental wherewithal.
I mean, I think they have for a long time. I mean, look at the fact that he couldn't stand trial because he's not capable of doing it. Right? They didn't put him on trial because of his there was a term they used for it, but basically they're like, oh, he's too old, he's not capable of doing this. Then why is he running our country? Right?
Right. It's terrible. I don't think this is news to anybody. Just know that we agree.
Well, sadly, it is.
You really think so?
I want to believe it's not, but I know for a fact it is.
I also think, going back to that original clip of, like, the Democrat sheep.
Yeah.
I think they believe that. And again, they're more like, it's less about how our country's doing and more about, like, I'm anti-Trump.
Yeah.
So they would rather choose that guy over, because again, they're all causal. They've weaponized Trump, right? Even the Democrats have used them to create the cause and rally the troops, right? So I don't think.
Well, and if you look at all the things that they say about Trump, like, first of all, their biggest complaint is he's an asshole. Well, we all know that, right? However, like, well, he's going to start wars and he's going to do it. Okay, he was in office for 4 years. How many wars did he start?
0. He actually
Biden's been in office for how long? Biden's been in office for 4 years. How many wars has he started?
Many.
Or, oh, well, he didn't do it, right? But guarantee you the U.S. and Biden, or whoever's controlling Biden, probably more likely,
like the military industrial complex,
right? Are manipulating the war in Ukraine, even Palestine and Israel. You think the U.S. is involved in that, and more than they're allowing people to believe? If you think that, then you're delusional. 100%. Because I guarantee you they're far more involved than what even I think.
Absolutely. I don't think I've ever seen, like, we all know now to post COVID, I think it's pretty like widespread knowledge at this point. Like conspiracy theories, we're all figuring out were never like theories at all. It's like they're like conspiracy facts.
They were just
You know what I
somehow
mean?
the Republicans knew before the Democrats, or
Oh,
maybe,
it's weird.
maybe it's just they didn't want to admit it.
It's so weird. But like we now know, like you always heard the stories of like how the CIA was involved in Vietnam and Operation Desert Storm and how they were securing assets, all that kind of
the
stuff.
assassination of JFK,
Toppling governments, all that stuff. We've like, it's kind of like, it's the thing you don't want to think about, but it's been happening for a long time. I've never, ever, and I've always been a conspiracy theorist. I'm only 31, but I'm just saying, like, these last 4 years, you can see like a 1-to-1. That's where the CIA was involved. That's where the CIA, and it was everywhere Biden's fingerprints were.
If you think there's not more people than George Soros,
I know,
with the money behind that pulling strings, he's just the most public facing one. Guarantee you, there's way more.
Yeah, 100%, absolutely 100%. That should be the singular topic for our next relevant rants.
Well, tell Tom.
Absolutely. All right, we can roll the next one. The next one's awesome.
He said, I can fix the national debt problem in 5 seconds by doing what? Let's hear what he says himself. This is Warren Buffett, $100 billion guy. Here's what he says. Go for it.
These problems are problems that have built up over decades, and there hasn't been a Congress that's been mature enough or a president that's been mature enough to take this head on.
I can end the deficit in 5 minutes. You just pass a law that says that anytime there's a deficit of more than 3% of GDP, all sitting members of Congress are ineligible for re-election.
That's accountability. The curse word in America the last 30 years has been accountability. If we can bring accountability in hospitals, in Congress, in Medicare, Medicaid, in real estate, in education, a lot of things are going to change.
Dude, I hate that she even like used the word maturity. That kind of irks me. You know, it's like, no, it's integrity. You know what I mean? There hasn't been a president with the integrity to make those kinds of choices. But dude, what do you think about what Uncle Warren said?
Well, so there's I've heard this discussed many times. You probably heard this discussed, but it's a it's a downhill slide when you look at people who are spending other people's money on other people, right? So they've done studies and everything else on this. But if you're spending your money on you, you're gonna be careful about what you spend. If you're spending somebody else's money on you, you're still gonna be more careful at what you spend. But when you're spending somebody else's money on other people, at a point, like, you just don't care, and that's where we're at. Like, we're just spending, and frankly, the only reason they're spending any of this money, well, I shouldn't say the only reason. One of the biggest reasons they're spending a lot of this money is just to stay in power.
Yeah, 100%. What happened to nationalism? You know, like over in Europe, like go look
Christian
at
nationalism.
What's that?
Christian nationalism.
What is that?
it's a bad thing.
Okay. No, maybe that's another rabbit hole. But no, like whatever happened to just like loving your country and wanting it to be the best thing ever? You know what I mean? So like elsewhere in the world, people actually love where they're from, and they want to keep all the profits, all the domestic product being created, all of the revenue being generated, and the jobs being created, all within its borders. Dude, for those of you guys who don't know, GDP's gross domestic product, when that sinks 3%, that's a massive decrease. And it shows that the interests of the people in power lie somewhere else that are not where we live.
Yeah, well, that'd be an interesting conversation to look at that, like, you know, in the future, like in the coming weeks. Where's GDP, and how has GDP gone up or down based on the past, like, probably 20 years of presidency?
Yeah, well, I've heard it said that that, you know, the GDP is fractional, right? So you can't really look at the quarterly numbers. It's not completely accurate to like the trajectory of a country. But if we could look at like the last 50 years and see what happened, you know, I think that'd be awesome. But anyways, is it any shock, right? So like, if the people in power, our elected officials, are obviously moving everything overseas, right? Everything's imported now. There are less jobs here. I mean, like, that's how you boost the economy is bringing everything stateside. And ultimately, if our elected officials are creating policies and upholding policies that allow that stuff to happen, well, it's a slippery slope.
But also, if you
we're at with China and countries like, or nations
countries,
like that.
yeah. But like, you also look at like a lot of that is just due to the fact of, well, we're going to increase everyone's wages, right? Increase minimum wage, or we're gonna help workers out. You're not helping workers. You're eliminating jobs, because like you and I both are, have some relation to online industry and online marketing and those things, right? And as well as I do, a lot of people are choosing to hire overseas because when I can hire someone that is a great livable wage at a fraction of what I can hire someone here, and they're just as intelligent and they're just as capable, why would I not do that? Right? Because I have to figure out a way to keep my costs lower. And frankly, it's my responsibility, fiscal responsibility as a business owner, to be as profitable as we possibly can while still providing a great service.
Absolutely.
Right. So what is the biggest expense in almost every single business? Labor. Right. So if the costs are going up in one area, then how do you compensate for that? By shifting it over to another area. Right.
But the buck has to stop somewhere. And I don't know what reform looks like, because we're so,
like when you look at like our US median income is $75,000 a year now. Right. And you can take what does that end up being, like $7,000 a month, roughly $7,000 a month. And I can go hire someone overseas, and this is not taking advantage. This is actually providing a great livable wage for them, $1,000 a month. Why would I not do that?
Yeah, well, it's all relative. So inflation is at the basis of all this stuff, because if your cost of living is so high, we can't afford anyone in America, and that's why we're the laughing stock of the world. So but man, it makes you really appreciate true businessmen in office. Yeah. I think that's what I appreciate most about Donald Trump. Not that, again, he is an asshole, and not that we want to support his moral moral code or ethics, but at the end of the day, I think you need people like that. That genuinely care about enterprise, and bringing this, and honestly understand economics and money at such a deep level that they can provide stability to our nation. So, anyways, show me someone better that's running in that regard, and I'll support them. So.
Yeah. So, we got any more? All right, let's get to the next
It
one.
is not the school. The school and the teachers are supporting cast. The habits that they need to succeed in school are built at home first, with the parent first. If your kid is failing middle school, failing high school, but coming to school with Jordans, has an Xbox, a PlayStation 5, hanging out with friends, got a bicycle, he's popping wheelies down the street, he's got a brand new cell phone with Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat, but he's failing middle school, that is a parent thing. It is not the teachers. It is not the school.
Man, I have so many things to say about that, right? Because we've had that conversation, you and me and Tom and all of us, so many times, right? Because very much agree. It is responsibility at home before it's a responsibility at school. But I also am and I think you're on the same page as me, and Tom kind of is more or less too, but he has a little bit different opinion, which is great. I love having a different opinion. I'm not a big fan of the general public school system at all anyway, right? Because if you look at the public school system and how it was designed and why it was designed, right? It was designed less so as a model of education and more so as a model of producing more drones or factory workers, right? So you look at the entire way that the public education system was set up, the structure, the schedule, the standing in lines, the grading, all of those things were structured in such a way to produce better employees or better drones, people that would fall in line and follow instructions. And that's one reason of many that Blue Dave and I choose to homeschool our kids. And I think you're on that same path, Blake.
Yes.
But I think 100%, if you're abdicating your responsibility as a parent, and especially if you're abdicating your responsibility as a parent to public school, then you've already lost. I was having this conversation with somebody this morning at Bible study, and I was talking about my kids, because Ludavia especially, and me as well, but I give most of the credit to my wife. My son was having a hard time, and I'm not going to go into great depth on the show about that. I'll talk to you about it later, Blake. But He was having a hard time at school, and my heart was breaking for him because of it. But at that same time, and this is because of seeds that have been planted intentionally over his lifespan of almost 11 years now, he was quoting scripture back to me.
Wow.
And that's not because of something they've done at school. And he goes to a program twice a week, and they have great teachers. It's a great program, everything else. That's because of the intentionality his mother and I have put into his life.
Mm-hmm. That's huge, dude. Well, you have a lot to be proud of, man. That's like a attaboy moment.
Yeah. That's
fantastic. I deal with kids and their parents all day, every day. And for those of you guys who don't know, I was a high school teacher prior to owning my sport performance facility. And so I deal with families all the time. I see them in all shapes and sizes. I'll be honest with you, we as a culture, the culture of our facility tends to attract very affluent, caring families that spend a lot of time with their kids, prioritize a lot of the same values that we do. Obviously, like, where do they want to send their kids? To people like them, people that they have an affinity for, they trust, because you uphold the same standard they do in their home. So I pay attention to what works. The kids I really like, the kids I'm like, oh, I got to coach that kid. You know what I mean? And I always look at their family. I look at their parents. I look at their upbringing, because success leaves clues, right?
Amen.
And I'm a young dad. I got a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old at home.
Yep.
If I've got some stud athletes in my gym that act the right way off the field, on the field, in the classroom, at church, I'm going to look at the parents and be like, let's learn from that, right?
Yeah.
Here's what I found. The attention given to these kids in the first 8 to 10 years of their existence changes. It has all the power to make who they are for the rest of their life. And so ultimately you can't, and with them starting TK at 5 years old ish, whatever,
Yeah.
My daughter's 6, her personality is completely blossomed, man.
Oh, yeah.
I can tell the young lady she's going to continue changing, but I'm just saying, I can't rely on teachers and coaches to be what I'm not for her.
Yeah.
And so I think that as a teacher, I taught at an East Side school, an underprivileged, 2 underprivileged campuses where parents weren't that involved in their kids' lives. So I saw the complete opposite of that. And the kids largely raised themselves. You had siblings being mom and dad, for the kids, and parents strung out on meth, working 2 jobs, whatever the case may be, but they weren't present for their kids more often than not. And so as a result, there's a grab bag of what you got, because they were the product of the environment they were placed in. But what's the environment for you and I's family their first 10 years?
In church, at home, in prayer, nightly, reading 100%. The Bible. And so my son last night, he said, can you just read the Bible to me? And so when he went to bed, he's like, can we just play the Bible, audio, instead of nature sounds, because they grew up listening to sound machines. He's like, instead of nature sounds, can I just listen to the Bible tonight? I was like, absolutely, let's do it.
Absolutely. So they go to school 8 to 3 every day. That's 7 hours a day. You might get 7 hours with them every night, Monday through Friday. Then you have weekends. So it's even during the work week. You get all day with them Saturday, all day Sunday. Who has a bigger influence on them? And if your kid's an asshole, who do you blame?
Yeah.
Well, he's not producing because the parents, or it's the teacher's fault. It's the coach's fault. They have a terrible attitude and they want to give up on their sport. They got a girl pregnant. They don't go to church. They whatever. Maybe it's because they are a mini version of you. And again, going back to the accountability thing, no one wants to look at the products they've created and admit that maybe they had some responsibility in that.
Yeah.
So I feel the weight of that responsibility to oh man, I'm really ranting today.
That's okay.
But I feel the weight of that responsibility every day I wake up for the little human beings that I'm going to leave behind, and knowing that the years I have with them right now at 6 and 3, I never get back. And they're totally going to form the 16-year-old that I have in my home in 10 years from now.
I got a few things to add to that. So first of all, Lou Dave and I were at a parenting conference, I believe it was. It was a parenting or marriage conference, and they said something that's always stuck with us. And this was gosh, I don't know how many years ago, but many years ago, when our kids were much younger than they are now. And they said, which was a great little extra seed. The behaviors you see them exhibiting now, unless corrected or changed, it may look cute now, but what does it look like in 10, 20 years from now? Because that behavior that they're learning will continue to be formed, and it'll just come out in different ways. So think about, what are they doing now that needs to be corrected? Because this rebelling against authority or whatever that is, oh, well, he has his own personality. Well, that's cool. And there's so many things like, we could talk about this for an hour. We could talk about it for a whole day. We could talk about it for a whole week, but to make it shorter, what are you seeing now that in 20 years isn't going to be cute anymore?
Mhm.
Right. And then the other thing I have to say is, I've been fortunate and blessed and intentional about this also, which is one of the biggest keys of
Intentional.
having some very great mentors in my life.
Mhm.
And, Tom is one of them, but I've also had some really good peers. So the mentors can say, this is what I did when my kids were little. The peers like you, Blake, can say, this is what's working for us now. And my wife and I have both had those. I had a conversation with one of them several years ago, and they said, well, there's parents that did all the things right and their kids didn't turn out good. What's the difference between getting advice from them and getting advice from the guy who maybe even made more mistakes than that guy and their kids turned out great? I said, well, like you said, success leaves clues, right? And maybe you made some mistakes, but I'd rather go to find a mentor who the end result is great than go to someone who's a mentor who may have all the same answers, that their end result didn't turn out as great. And that's not necessarily a judgment of the person, but if you're going to learn how to bake a cake, would you rather go to someone who takes their cake out of the oven and it's still liquid? Or would you rather go to someone who takes their cake out of the oven and they are a professional baker and could sell it for, $10,000?
Yeah. The interesting thing is that we all know that parenting is hard, right? Like all of them.
One of the hardest things you'll ever do.
I'm looking at things like, how many kids do you have? What's the average? Would I want to hang out with all of them? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that kind of a deal. And once you figure out that, no, it wasn't a fluke. This kid's like demeanor wasn't just, they were very peaceful, very calm, very quiet as a kid. And that's who they are as an adult. It's like, no, these parents developed a system, and systems are created on how they solve problems. So it's like, I pay attention to those where it's like, they got 3 kids and they're all studs. You know what I mean? And I'm not talking about athletically. I'm talking about in the home, professionally, someone I want to give a job to, things like that. And I want to say one more thing, because I always go back to time. There are really only 2 resources in this world that you can pay for things with: money or time. Okay. Now, when you're raising kids, there's only one that makes sense, and that's time. Okay. So this is a big reason why we're homeschooling. I can't speak for you, but I didn't want my kids. I didn't want to rely on other people to raise my kids.
Amen.
Be that babysitters, teachers, counselors, what are the other things? Coaches eventually. They're not quite there yet. It's because I can't vouch for the decisions they're going to make and how, the things they're going to model in front of my kids are going to pick up on in an instant. The other thing you said is, well, these parents did everything right.
Yeah.
Why the kid ended up like that? I'm like, what you're not seeing is, maybe the relationship that mom and dad both had, or maybe the time that was lacking with the kids that left a void that had to be filled by something else.
Right.
Humans, the soul has a way of filling voids. There are no vacuums in your soul. And so, if you're with them all the time, you have more control over what they get filled with, right? So ultimately, at the end of the day, I want to look back at my parenting, and maybe we'll record a podcast 30 years from now, and you'll look like Uncle Warren on there. But we'll record it, and I'm going to look you dead in the eye and be like, I never sacrificed time with my kids for jack squat.
Yeah. Well,
and I hope that's the reason they're amazing. I really do.
On that same note, and I wasn't going to say this, but I felt prompted to say it because of you. There was a time in my life, and I'm going to give you the shortest version possible about this, and I'll share the rest with you later. But there was a time in my life where I was building the business, and I was spending a lot of time away from home, and through a series of events and outside influences and other things, God ultimately delivered a message to me that said, you think you're going to invest all this time in the business now and make up for lost time later. The truth is, you can never make up for that lost time.
It's so finite, right? So again, you can make money all day and you can replenish it and you can cycle through it, but time you don't get back. And so, one last thing. Go read about stages of development. It's worth a Google search. If you go do a cursory walk through Barnes and Noble or whatever and pick up a book on it, there are a couple I'd recommend, but there are windows for learning in a child's life, and some windows, once they've shut, it's really hard to rewind.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about lost time, super important to understand what their real formative years are and what the brain is most primed to learn and adopt. That creates the little human being you see as an adult, you know. And I'm like, man, you better get it right when the window's open.
That's right.
So just like training athletes. So anyway, yeah, that was a good one.
That's probably our biggest rant is on parenting, because it's the most important thing in both of Blake's and mine's
100%.
life. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. Have a great day.